Thanks for downloading this podcast from Radio Kerry. For more, go to radiokerry.ie/podcasts or search iTunes using the keyword Radio Kerry.
To our next guest now, and that's the Minister for State at the Department of Health with responsibility for disability services, Finian McGrath. Minister McGrath, good morning to you.
Good morning, Jerry, and how are you all in Kerry?
Not too bad. Now, you were in Kerry yourselves during the week, opening up a number of new centres, and you went to visit St Mary's of the Angels facility in Beaufort. What was your take on what the facility was like? How did you feel after you saw the venue? Well,
first of all, can I just thank, I spent the whole day in Kerry on Wednesday, and I had a very successful day out. I've visited the employability in Rock Street in Tralee. Then I went over to the Cara Centre in Tralee, and then I met the parents at the opening of the Down syndrome new premises there in Ballona Estate in Tralee. And then the final part of my visit was I went over to Beaufort. So can I just first of all, Jerry, just thank Mayor Terry O'Brien and all the people of Tralee, and particularly Kerry, for the very, very warm and courteous reception that I got. And despite some political difference with some of my colleagues and some people I met, I just thought everything was, they were very, very welcome and very, very supportive.
Indeed. The facility itself, 76 residents that are there. We won't go back through all the controversy surrounding people being put on housing list, because that has been talked about and has been worked on. What's your understanding of the situation there now and where things go from here, Minister?
Well, first of all, I had a very, very successful tour of St Mary's of Angels in Beaufort. I met the staff. I met practically all of the residents. I visited all the houses and all the facilities, and I had a very, very good insight of what the complex is like. And I also met a representative of the parents. So I got a very, very good insight to what's on site, what's going on there. And I just think I want to thank Claire and the staff there for the magnificent work they're doing. But my agenda, though, is I have available, you probably know that I'm very, very involved in dealing with the issue of congregated settings and trying to move people from congregated settings into smaller based community houses, and that is my plan for the future. And can I just say as well, because there was a lot of misinformation about this plan to move from congregated settings, it's evidence-based, it's compiled following written process of research, analysis and consultation and engagement, and it's being proved to be very, very successful. At the moment, we have 2,730 people who are remaining in congregated settings. Now, 2 years ago, Jerry, we had 4,000 people in these congregated settings, and we've now that down to 2,730. So 1,300 people have moved very, very happily and are very satisfied with the backup services. So as the Minister, I've been provided with 100 million over 5 years from the HSE to make people with disability, to give them the opportunity of living away from institutions or congregated settings and to move them in appropriate accommodation in their own local community. Now, that's the first point. The second point, of course, there are major concerns by many families in St Mary's of the Angels in Beaufort, and I listened to their concerns at the meetings, and I gave them certain guarantees. And that's very important that people understand that. And the first guarantee I gave them was residents will not move out of St Mary's if they and their family members agree that it will not, unless it's in their best interest. The second thing I said to them is, if any resident is moving from St Mary's of the Angels, it will on the basis that it will enhance their life. There will be no planning for any move will take place without an open, inclusive discussion. And the final thing is, I and the HSE have taken on board the suggestions from the parents that family members and St John of God and the HSE, that a committee, a management committee be established with an independent chair, and the aim is to work together in the best interest of the residents.
Okay. The parents group that you met issued a statement after that meeting, and they said the following, Minister. They welcomed your confirmation you just talked about there, that the residents of St Mary's will be allowed to live out their lives in their homes at St Mary of the Angels. This is a great relief to residents, their parents and the families. but unfortunately does nothing for the many families around the county who are caring full-time for their disabled loved ones in their own home while struggling daily to cope without any respite from one end of the year to the other. It was heartbreaking to hear Jean O'Sullivan speak to the Minister in relation to caring for her two sons who have autism at home in Kenmare without any respite hours or help. Caring for severely disabled people is not a black and white issue. It's all very well to say people can live ordinary lives in ordinary places with the necessary services and amenities. The reality is these services are not now and never will be available everywhere around the county of Kerry. If the government were genuine and honest about this whole policy, they would accept that these services are not available in the broader community and unlikely to be so in the future. Our association will continue to lobby for changes to this policy and for St Mary the Angels to be designated a centre of excellence and provide respite care for our most vulnerable people in our county. So they're talking about the issue of respite there. Yes. With regards to the services. But just before you get to that, one key point that they've made continually since this controversy erupted in November is that parents feel, and they have the guarantee now their residents, their family members will be allowed to stay, but parents feel and they fear that moving into the decongregated settings in the community is all fine and well. But 2 points. One is they're profoundly disabled and they need round-the-clock care. And the central concern is that the money or the services or the staffing won't be there to meet that care in the community setting. What can you talk about in relation to that?
Well, first of all, these are two genuine fears, Jerry, and I totally accept the statement by them. But listen, can I just tell the parents and the people of Kerry that I'm 6-7 months in the job, and within 3 months of the job, I got an extra 31 million to invest in services to deal with a lot of the issues I've had. I've just finished negotiations in the budget and the HSC service plan. And I think the people of Kerry should know that this year, in 2017, I'll be spending 1.688 billion on disability services, and that's an increase of 96.3 million. That's a 6% increase in the social care disability service plan. So what I'm saying is, I'm starting to rebuild the services in the disability sector that I accept from the parents groups that were damaged over the last 7 years. So the issue about respite, I can guarantee those parents, and I don't say this lightly because I'm also a parent of a daughter with an intellectual disability. My budget is trying to and making sure that respite services are increased over the next 12 months. At the moment, we're planning for 182,000 respite overnights for people. We're talking about 1.4 million personal assistance hours for 2,400 people. We're talking about 24,800 day places and 41,000 day respite sessions. So my job is as Minister, and by the way, I really appreciate the fact that the parents have focused on this issue because I need support in the Dáil. And I'm very lucky that your colleagues in Kerry, Brendan Griffin, Michael Healy-Ray, Danny Healy-Ray and Martin Fellis and John Brezel are very, very supportive of me when I'm going banging down the door to the Minister of Public Expenditure and the Minister of Finance for respite money. So that's the first thing. Of course, those parents are very fearful to deal with the second point, Jerry, that you raised, the issue of fear. I will not stand over and accept any situation, if a family agrees to move out of a congregated setting, that they are not given the full 100% guarantee of services. That is not going to happen on my watch, and I feel very strongly about that. And can I say that the 1,300 people that have moved already were not dumped in the community without services. The staff moved with them. It has been very, very successful. But of course, if there's any question of parents being fearful, I'll be watching their back in relation to this issue. They have to have the services. And if one final point to make in relation to the fear issue is, of course I understand the parents of adults with intellectual disability and physical disability that have very complex needs. They have to be guaranteed services. And some of the services, by the way, that I saw in Beaufort, I mean, some of the attempts by Claire and the management team there and the staff, they've done a lot of work there over the last 6 to 7 months to try and improve the quality of life and trying to give individual people their own rooms. And I want to commend and thank them for that. So my agenda will be to reduce the fear, to reduce the misinformation, but also to invest and reform the disability services.
OK, Minister, stay with us for a couple of more minutes. But just one question I want to ask you about the future of St Mary's. Yes. You've given the guarantee that no one will be moved without consultation, and if people want to live out their time there, they can. But what happens after that to the facility?
Well, you see, what's happening at the moment is that I'm dealing with the issue about dealing with the congregated settings, and also to say, Jerry, as well, that I met a number of people when I was there on Wednesday that actually want to move into community housing. So there are different views among the families as well.
Sure.
But the reality is that we are moving now into a national policy of closing down big institutions. And as I said before, 2 years ago we had 4,000 individuals in these institutions. Now that's down to 2,730. So what I'm doing is the parents and the families and the people with disabilities who want to move first will get that right, and nobody will have a veto on that. Now, as regards the future of St Mary's of Angels in Beaufort, there's many different creative ideas in relation to that. They could be used as respite places. It could be used in other situations. Some of the families there are individual rooms, by the way, in some of the complexes that I saw myself at first hand. So I have an open mind. The HSE has an open mind. The key thing is, my agenda is to do what's in the interest of the person with the disability, not staff members, not HSE, not the Department of Health, not politicians. The focus I have as a minister is what is in the best interest of the person with the disability. So I see there could be a future for different aspects of service for people with disabilities, but the time for moving from congregated settings, that is my national policy, and I will be pushing this issue, but of course in consultation with families, particularly with people with disabilities and their families.
Minister, in general, in relation to your comments about disability funding, and you talked about the increase that you've achieved and the amount of money that is being spent, but are you not coming from, you're just trying to get back to somewhere near where we were? Because we've dealt with several stories over the last 2 or 3 years here of massive cutbacks to services. I'll give you an example. Last July, we spoke to Sheila McCarthy. She's a parent of a son who has autism, who goes to St. Francis Special School, which is on the St. Mary's the Angels campus in Beaufort. And she talked about the regression that some people are finding and some children are going through because of the drop-off in services. The early intervention's not there like it used to be, the occupational therapy. Here's a small little bit of what she said in relation to what she's experienced and others in terms of the HSE reducing services over the last 10 years.
Without a doubt, you'd have to have regression when your services are reduced by 90%. Vital services that prevent children's hips dislocating, prevent children choking. Our children at the school are very fragile and have high needs. You could have a child that could have years of intervention, which some had, and they regress to a point that they're back in wheelchairs because of lack of intervention now.
That's the reality of what's happened, unfortunately, over the last 10 years with the cutbacks in services because of the recession. We've seen some of the most vulnerable disabled children who had been making progress when the money was there, and now they've gone backwards. It's a tall order to get back to where we were, isn't it? Or are we getting there?
That parent is very right. I mean, Jerry, of course she absolutely has a strong point. If you have disability services which were slashed over the last 7 or 8 years in relation to during the bad years and the economic downturn and the banking crisis and the austerity measures, of course that's the situation. But I'm the new Minister of State now for Disabilities, and I told you at the beginning of the programme that my budget for 2017 is 1.688 billion. That's up 96.3 million on last year alone. So, of course, I am starting to rebuild the disability services, and I'm also starting to reform the services because I want to ensure that every single parent in this country and every single person with disability gets the maximum services. So as part of that investment reform, you probably know that I've secured the 10 million for 2017 to enable all children who qualify for the domiciliary care allowance to be provided with a medical card. That's something parents have been telling me for the last number of years. Also, in relation to some of those emergency situations, I've managed to get 16.2 million for supporting 395 people in emergency cases this year, and also new residential emergency places, 185. A new scheme I'm introducing is the new home support in respite for emergency cases, and I've managed to get funding for 210 of those. So the answer is yes, the parents are right. to say the services have devastated. But my job now, as the new minister, is to rebuild the services, reinvest in them, and I hope over 3 years that I'll have started that process, and every single child and adult in this state will have a service from the cradle to the grave. That is my plan. That's my vision, and I have a 3-year strategy.
And hopefully
if I don't
that
get it done over 3 years,
sure.
I'll say to parents, listen, I shouldn't have been there in the first place. But my answer is, I'll do my best to deliver, and I'm putting forward a strong disability rights platform as well to the services for all families.
And hopefully that does happen. But what can you say about the way things have worked here? Or I know you're a minister, you're in the brief at the moment, who knows what will happen in the future, but every time there is a recession, every time there's a crash, every time money has to be pulled back, mental health and disability services, they're almost the first to go. Is that going to continue, or can something be done to prevent that from happening?
Well, that's the first. That is item one on the agenda, and that is what I'm saying to my cabinet colleagues at every single cabinet meeting. I emphasise this. Why in the past successive governments have always used the vulnerable and the easier sections of the code. So on my watch, and I'm given a commitment, I don't make false promises, but I give a commitment that is exactly what I do. If we have a downturn another 2 or 3 years' time, or some economic crash internationally, absolutely, the disability sector has got to be protected, and it's my job as a minister to fight like hell, to defend the services and defend the people with disabilities.
Final question for you, Minister. How long are you going to be there? How steady is this government, and how well do your cabinet colleagues get on with each other as we head into the new Dáil term next week?
Well, as you know, I'm getting on my job, and I'm trying to focus on all the issues that you talked about and the people of Kerry told me about on Wednesday. And that's item one. But I'm kind of getting on fairly well. I'm settling into the job. Of course, I have to fight like hell with Pascal Donoghue and Michael Noonan for extra resources service for people with disabilities. But again, as I said, your colleagues in Kerry there, Brendan Griffin, Michael Healy-Ray, Danny Healy-Ray, John Brazel, Martin Ferris, and also your local councils there, Teresa Ferris and Tom McAllister and Norma Foley, Michael O'Neill and Johnny Healy-Ray, and the other councillors. You're very fortunate in Kerry to have public reps that are backing me when it comes to fighting for people with disabilities. So the answer is, this government will get on. We're a minority government. We need the support of independents and the other parties in Fianna Fáil and the other smaller parties as well to get these measures through. But I get a lot of positive responses from the opposition, because I know they agree with the reform and investment agenda that I have.
Okay, Minister Finian McGrath, listen, we're going to leave it there, but thanks very much for taking time to talk to us this morning. That's Minister for State at the Department of Health with responsibility for people with disabilities, Finian McGrath. If you have a view on what he had to say on disability services funding in general, and also on the situation at St Mary of the Angels, which he toured this week, we want to hear from you on the programme, and we'll see where it goes in terms of the increase in funding. Welcome this year, but is coming from a very low base, having been decimated over the last 10 years, and a long way to go to where it needs to be. And it's just me on this programme dealing and meeting and interviewing with parents of people with disabilities over the last 10 years, and the key point being put there, and this again takes money, is the respite situation for very many families across the county not being anywhere near where it needs to be. Dolly Lawler Tralee on St Mary of the Angels says, I was there when Minister McGrath visited on Wednesday. I should have made this point to him then, but didn't get a chance. The Minister and the Government have a duty of care to the residents of St Mary of the Angels to provide the best care that we're used to. Parents started this and we're fighting for our children. My son has been there for 35 years. Donny O'Sullivan, Killorglin, two things for the Minister. One, St Mary of the Angels is not an institution. Two, the Minister's statement to those parents who were seeking respite and looking for care for their children. His statement said they would not be taken into care until the parents were deceased. Is that statement needs to be withdrawn. These parents need help. Another listener says, St Mary of the Angels, how can the Minister justify spending the amount of money it's going to cost to set up all these houses and provide all outpatient care? Why not put the money into St Mary's itself and make it a centre of excellence for people with disabilities? Well, you're talking about the 100 million there that's been given for decongregation of the 4,000 or so people who were living in these institutionalised settings, as they're termed. You heard his answer to that question. He fully believes the best thing to do, and the best international practice and best medical evidence given to him, is that the best thing for these people is to move them into the community, and he's given a guarantee they will have the same, if not better, services in those decongregated settings than they have now. That's his 100% belief. You can disagree with him, but this is what he believes, and he's the man in charge of disabilities budget, and this is what he's doing. So Centre of Excellence, probably a great idea if the money is there to it, but the focus of the Department of Health, the HSE and the Minister is not on that. It's on using the money to transfer people from congregated settings out into the community, and he fully believes this is the best thing for them and for their families. That's his answer to that, I'd imagine. Mary from Knockanure, Finian McGrath, has nothing for admiration but St Mary's and the Angels in Beaufort and all they do. But here we have a minister trying to rehouse them out in the community when we have 7,000 homeless families. Where are they going with their policies? And a listener gets in touch and says Listowel to Tralee Road is treacherous this morning. Accident at Banmore Cross. Go easy if you're in that area. And another caller says, great to hear of Simon Harris' plans to make sure people are accountable for whatever job they're assigned to do, and also the overworked staff situation needs to be addressed.
Thanks for listening to this podcast from Radio Kerry. For more, go to radiokerry.ie/podcasts or search iTunes using the keyword Radio Kerry.